Okay.
That was really fun. Shalom. Hello.
How are you, doctor? Right here.
Wonderful. How are you?
Hello.
Hello. How are you?
Good. I finally made it to one.
I'm so glad. That's very cool. All right. Well, let's wait for a few other people that are drifting in. And Rabbi McLashley's here. So, welcome. I'm so happy. Duffy, good to see you. I'm wearing your shirt again. This is made by Duffy. The first one, right, is don't talk about Sonic Club. Right? Because if you claim to be a Sonic, what does that mean? You're no Sonic. So, okay. Hello. All right, I got people in the chat. Oh my goodness. Oh, now wait. Did I? Oh, I had. Oh, I need to. So today's Parsha, everyone, is like a double Parsha. It's Nitzavim Vayeilech. Okay. Right? Am I right, Rabbi?
Yes.
Okay. It's a double Parsha, and I think we once explained this because the Jewish calendar is on a lunar cycle, right? And so we don't break it up into 52 weeks per se, but then sometimes there are reasons that we need to double up. And one of the big reasons, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, is because Rosh Hashanah is coming, right?
Right.
And on the Sabbath before, or the Friday before Rosh Hashanah, you read this other Parsha. Am I correct?
Yeah, Shabbos Shuvah.
Okay, so yeah, I'm learning just like everyone else, So, shall we do the bracha? I think everyone, lots of people are here. Let's do the bracha. All right. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. Amen. Okay. So that's the bracha. And And where are we? Like I said, oops, look what I just did. I just pulled out the marker of the book. Okay, now I'm in big trouble. All right, but we'll talk a little bit maybe about Nitzavim, which means to stand up, right? But to stand up, it means, my understanding is that it's to stand up straight with power, with strength, not just like standing and sitting down. It's a different version of that word. Am I correct on that one? Yeah. Well, okay.
Yeah. Omed is stand. Amida,
Yeah.
The prayer we say it while standing.
Yes, right. But but this is to stand up. This is to, this is like to get everybody. You're standing at attention, right? Attention. That's my understanding, right? So last week's Parsha, we didn't really get to it because we got so excited about seeing the Sofer and everything like this that we didn't talk. There are these horrible curses that are in last week's Parsha. And it's probably a good thing that we didn't get to them because nobody likes to read them generally, even in the temple. And so much so that it's tradition that maybe that people are not generally called up to read that portion, that this is just done by the person who's reading the Torah to begin with, the rabbi to begin with, or in some congregations, I've heard that it's the most well-liked person or the most popular person because that's the most blessed person. So they're least likely to be at risk because when you say bad things, that's a Jewish principle. But when you say bad things, they can manifest. May that which I speak manifest as reality. And so this part, the curses part, is generally said very quickly. You don't want to spend too much time lingering on it, and very quietly, because we don't want to say it too loudly. But then we've got this other parsha. This is coming up, right? And I would say that kind of like after you would read these curses, I can imagine like a feeling of maybe despondency, right? Because you've read all this horrible stuff. It's kind of terrible. But now we're told stand up, right? It's a big thing. Do you have anything to add? Am I correct?
You're correct. I'm listening. I mean, I'll chime in later on, but right now I'm just listening. Everything you're saying is spot on.
Okay, good. I'm new. I'm learning. So the second half of this parsha, the first part of the parsha tells us to stand strong. And the second half, my understanding, my interpretation is that it tells us how we are supposed to stand strong, right? Vayeilech, how are we supposed to progress? How do we progress in the face of these disastrous things? We just read all that. But how do we move forward? And so I want to introduce the idea here about the idea of moving forward. A lot of people, they feel like they can't, they just want to get back to normal, right? Something tragic befalls them. They just want to get back to what they had before, okay? They underwent a divorce, and they want to be as happy as they were before the divorce. Now they're miserable, whatever. They had an operation. They broke their leg. They want to get back to where they started, like healed and with a functioning leg. But we all know that once something happens, there really is no going back. Right? That thing is broken forever because time only moves forward, right? So sometimes Humpty Dumpty just can't be put back together again. So how do you move forward when you really can't put Humpty Dumpty back. How are you going to move forward? My grandfather he broke his leg. He was a GI. He was an American Jew. He's a GI. You know, he lands in Normandy. A Jeep overturns on his leg. It crushes his leg. He's in a spiker cast for like months at a time, which is a type of cast that goes all the way over one leg, across your entire pelvis, and halfway down your other leg. And it has a small hole so you can poop and pee. And for the rest of his life, he walked with a limp. So how do you move? How do you? But he didn't complain. So how do you move forward? And I think King David says, "V'chol asov yehei mosher." Okay, in sadness and depression, right? There's got to be progress. There's got to be gain, right? Because otherwise, it's worthless. You don't want to be exactly where you were before, and you really can't be where you were before anyway. So sometimes the concept of descending in order to ascend is introduced, right? In order to move forward, sometimes you have to take a few steps back, take a running start, and then leap, right? If you want to jump up really high, you don't start from a standing position. You bend your knees, and then you jump up high, like a spring, okay? And that I think is a very kind of an important concept, which I felt running through these two sections, I would say, you know, this concept. So Moses comes, the first part, we'll go back to the first part. Moses comes out and he gathers, and I do have questions. He gathers everybody up, and these are going to be some language questions. So hopefully Rabbi McClashley will help with this. But so Moses gathers everybody up. And I do want to point out that when I read that text, he says, gather up, you know, the men of Israel and the children and the women and the this and the that and they gather everybody up. And if you read the Hebrew, I believe one of the words that he uses is a non-gendered word for head of household. Would that be correct?
Balabayit is the head of a household.
Head of household. Am I correct? Right?
Yeah, Balabayit is the head of a household.
So I think that's very interesting that he doesn't say the men of the house or the women. He says the head of the house, or whoever is the head of the house. It could be an aunt, an uncle. You know, he's calling. All right. So that I thought was a fascinating. I mean, I just learned that, you know, just myself. So I wanted to like point that out as an interesting little word usage. And the reason that I do that is because every word in the Torah is supposed to contain meaning, right? And the Torah is supposed to be there's not supposed to be any, I don't want to say funny business. I mean, everything is there for a reason. Everything is written that way for a reason. And, you know, anyway, there you go. There's a conservation of, how do I explain that? No words are wasted. That's how I would explain it. That there's no wasted words. There's a conservation. It's not overly long. I mean, if there's a way to shorten, say something more succinctly, which I'm having trouble doing, okay, the Torah does it, right? If there's a way to say something, so then we must ask ourselves, sometimes we see things and it gives me pause. If this is indeed the case, I have a question. One of the words is he says, I'm going to call everybody together, right, Rabbi? He says everybody together. But then he turns around and he lists off people, different types of people. So if he says, I got to call everybody together, everybody come around, why does he have to list off the woodcutters and the men and the women? We couldn't. I mean, there must be. This is a clue to me. This is what Parsha and reading Torah is about. Okay, because I don't really understand something, and thankfully I have someone here who's, and all of you here who are possibly more knowledgeable than I am and could fill in the blanks and have an idea, and I can learn from you, and we all learn. That's what it was supposed to be. It's supposed to be more interactive than what we have been doing previously, right? You guys can jump in and chime in with your knowledge. But to me, if it's in fact true that there is a conservation of words and every word is meaning, I have to ask the question, why? What is the Torah telling us? Why is it important to list off all of these different groups of people after Moses already says, everybody get over here? Is there any rabbinical thought on that? There is?
Yeah.
Well, could you share?
Well, I'm thinking about the Kabbalist it's a Kabbalistic concept, and you see it in Jewish mysticism. The Hebrew is Lefichach Adam Shenevi Yechidi Shekol Yomar B'Shvili Nivra Olam. Therefore, were people created individually, so that everyone should say, B'Shvili, for my sake, Nivra Olam, was the world created. So the idea is that you have the tzibur. The tzibur is the community, the totality. But the community consists of individuals, and every individual has something to contribute. And the contributions of the individual have to be recognized. It's important to recognize that the contributions of the individual. And everyone should say, basically, for my sake was the world created. Whatever I have to contribute, if it's a single mitzvah, if it's a single good deed, if it's a single contribution, if it's a single anything, the entire universe was created for this person, this person, this person, this person. Everyone, every single individual, every one of us has something to contribute. That contribution has to be acknowledged and recognized. Also, the word tzibur, it's kind of interesting because we're getting into Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, and right after it comes Sukkot and Simchat Torah. And what's kind of interesting about this, alluding to what you're saying, is that the word tzibur, which means community, al tifresh minat tzibur, not to remove yourself from the community, actually is an acronym. It consists of 3 letters. And the 3 letters stands for tzadikim, beinanim, and rishayim. The tzaddikim are the righteous, the beinanim are the people kind of in the middle, and the rishayim are the people who are wicked. So you'd say, well, wait a minute. Why do we have to include rishayim in tzibur, in the community? And between Sukkot and Simchat Torah, we have what we call the Arba Minim, the 4 species, the lulav, etrog, arabis, and hadassim. And to try to keep it brief, Tom and reach, taste and smell. Taste and smell relates to the Torah, the mitzvot, and the learning of the Torah, the knowledge of the Torah. So the thing of this is that the lulav has neither tam, taste, or reach, or smell. The etrog has both tam and reach. Which
That's
Torah learning
is like a citron, it's
exactly,
a citron fruit. It's a very aromatic, like lemon kind of thing.
Right.
For those.
And then the arabis and the hadassim, or the willow and the myrtle. Okay. So the thing is that one has taste, not smell. The other one has smell, not taste. So the idea is, though, that the lulav, which has neither smell nor taste, representing Torah learning and mitzvah, has neither one. And you're saying, well, what good is the lulav? The lulav has neither Torah learning or mitzvah. They compare it, the taste and the smell, to Torah learning and mitzvah. So you're saying the lulav has neither one. But here's the thing, the etrog has both learning, knowledge, and good deeds, mitzvot. The etrog has both tam, taste, and reach, and smell. But the thing is you cannot make the bracha. You cannot make the blessing on the arba minim, on the 4 species, until you bring the etrog, which has both, together with the other 3. In other words, the other 3, none of them, even the one that doesn't have taste or smell, is an integral component of the whole. You have a busted flush. You have
I see. So he's saying, like Moses is saying, gather everybody up together, and all of the individual qualities don't really are, while they're standalone operating individually, they're far more powerful together as a community. Right. When everybody is there and they're all present.
Right.
And are you saying that's somewhat analogous? Is
right. That they have to give each one their proper recognition in order for there to be like the total is greater than the sum of its parts. Okay, yes. That's nice, but until you know what the sum of the parts are, then you can't really appreciate how it's greater than the totality. So you're enumerating the sum of the parts.
I think there's another clue in the Torah that speaks to exactly what you just said. And that's because I believe, and again, I'm learning Hebrew, everyone. I don't know Hebrew. I'm learning it word by word. And when you read my books that I've translated Hebrew into English, that's how I'm doing this, okay? That's how I'm learning this language, word by word, because I'm trying to translate these texts and understand them, and not just go for the word, but the word root and stuff. And so when I look at this part, speaking exactly what you're saying, the words he says, you will stand before God, right? You will stand before God. And when he says the word you, he's not using what we have in English is that you is a singular, you. He's using a plural you. All of you will stand before God. All parts of you will stand before God. Right? That's my understanding. So I do have a question, though, which may or may not be answerable, which is the corollary of what we were just talking about, which is, it talks about the woodcutter and this and all the people that, the different qualities, right? And mentions, I don't know how many different types of people, a couple of different types, 20 different types, I don't know, right? Why? The question is, why stop there? Why didn't he include like the sweater makers and the carriage drivers and the lawyers, and why not? Why these people? Why in the Torah does it? And I don't know the answer. I'm asking everyone here. You got an answer for me?
I'd have to research. I'll just toss this out as a possibility. Maybe these were people that somehow what they did had
covered everything
with building the Mishkan or service in the Mishkan or something like that. The Mishkan was the portable temple for other people.
Because he doesn't mention priests, he doesn't mention sailors, he doesn't mention farmers. I mean, there's some important people there that could be on that list. And again, every word and its absence has meaning. So I don't know what the answer is, and I'm going to ask each and every one of you that are here to try to find an answer and bring it back to me, because I need to learn from you just as much, right? This is why we're all here. So there's another part, I think, a little bit about the is it in the next Parsha, where they talk about every Jew, every person has a share in Gan Eden, in the afterlife. Yes, Gan Eden.
It's in the beginning of Pirkei Avos, Kol Yisrael yesh lehem chelek olam haba.
And that irritates a lot of people, I think, because it means that one guy who's praying every day and is incredibly pious and working his tuchus off to be at temple at the right time and light the candles and do the mitzvot, he gets a share. But so do people like me who sit on their tuchus and do nothing. So there's an inequity that I think that historically in that phrase, that phrase brings. I have seen a lot of fights break out about that.
We have an interesting relationship between Yisachar and Zevulun. In the Torah, Yisachar would learn and Zevulun worked in order to support Yisachar. And, you know, the thing is that you had to have people who were working to support the scholars. The scholars were doing their job, but that doesn't mean that Zevulun was less important. A person who is putting in their hishtadlut and doing simple labor and simple work, what have you, to support those who are learning, also have a chelik in the zechut, in the merit of the schar of their learning.
So what you, sir, are pointing out is the system of radiology. And what do I mean? The business, I should say, not the system, but the business of radiology. So I was a trained radiologist. And as a radiologist, when we sit in the hospital and we read your x-rays, we are responsible for reading the x-ray of your broken pinky, okay? And we are also responsible for reading the MRI of the brain of that guy over there that has this freaking tumor and that's everywhere. And then the oncologists want to come down and they want you to measure every single little ditzel that you could possibly find. It's going to take 10 hours, okay? So to read this thing. Wow. So my partners would argue the way most radiology businesses work is that everybody does their job, the money comes in, and then we all split it equally. Okay? But not.
I'm not gonna get you up there.
Oop, I'm gonna have to mute someone in a second.
Get you up there.
Oh, let's see. How do I mute? Okay. Well, it's gone now. So, but that's not all radiology groups. Some radiology groups have gone to a work-based model. If they go to a work-based model, what happens is nobody wants to read the wrist films because the wrist films is a $10 thing. You read a brain MRI, that's $200. And it's a lot more work. It's a lot more what we call RVUs. And if you want to do all the RVUs and you want very high RVUs, what you do is you look at the MRIs and you start reading the MRIs and you send the wrist films to your partner. Okay? So in radiology groups, we don't like that because this guy's being a Shrendrick. It's not very fair because this guy who has to only read the wrist films, he's actually freeing up the other guy to read the hard stuff. So there would be big fights in our monthly meetings. Wow, you know, so-and-so, Bob over here, he only generates 300 RVUs a month. And then you go like, well, what does he do though? You know, he shouldn't get an equal portion because he's not working as hard as the other guy. And you go like, well, what is he doing? Well, he's reading all the mammograms. Okay, well, mammograms are very low paying. They're very high reimbursing. They're very low paying. But you got to have someone to read the mammograms. And if he's happy to read the mammograms, that leaves me to read the other thing that I want to do. So why don't we all have a share in the world? And I think that's what Rabbi McLashton is saying, which is that you know, everybody has their function, their purpose. Let me see how that is going on here. I'm gonna there we go. Got it. Haha. See, I learned how to do that. All right. So, any thoughts on that? I think there's another part that people get riled up about. I think quite often that seems to cause a little bit of consternation, of fighting, whatever. Is that there is a portion that a section of the Torah, a line in the Torah that tells you that you have to honor all the covenants made, past and present, right? Past and present. So you have to keep your promises. And people got bent out of shape, right, with God. People get bent out of shape because they say, like, wait a minute, why am I responsible to keep a covenant with this entity, okay, when I didn't make the covenant? My my 127th great grandfather made that covenant. I didn't make that covenant. Why should I hold to that? Why should I hold to that? That's not fair. And the answer is sometimes life isn't fair.
Well, no, I was just thinking about what you were saying before, though, about the various individuals and the contributions, which you were talking about with radiology, the person who's, frees you up to do your job and they have their job. And I was thinking that some people think, well, what I do is so like inconsequential to come up with a better, what I do isn't important. So I'll give you an interesting story. It's from it's a mushal that one time all the parts of the human body, there was a big machloket. There was a big dispute.
Oh, that's a great story.
Right. There was a big machloket. Which one of us is the most important?
That story is in the book that we read last month for Parsha. It's in the Jewish tales and fables.
Exactly.
And it's the argument of the body parts.
Right. And so each one had a machshava. Oh, I should be most. I'm the head. I mean, I should be the most important. And then the arms. Hey, without me, the hands. Without me, you couldn't do any work. The legs, you wouldn't be able to move anywhere. Until finally, the tongue. The tongue spoke up and said, well, I'm the most important, and all the other body parts laughed. The tongue, what are you talking about? You live your entire life imprisoned in darkness behind a bony structure, the teeth, a row of teeth. You live your entire existence in darkness. There's not a single bone in your body. And, in Jewish wisdom, we say, there was a rabbi, all my days, I grew up amongst the wise, and I didn't find anything as beautiful as silence. And the idea is that we say the power of life and death, Chaim and Mavet, the power of life and death resides in the tongue. There's an entire segment of laws that when I was in yeshiva, we were learning Shmirat HaLashon, which is guarding the tongue. And the tongue, all the other body parts were laughing at it. You're not important. You spend your life in dark. You spend your entire existence in darkness. You don't have a single bone. What do you do? So the interesting thing is that one time a king was very sick, and he says, I need a refuah, a cure. So whoever can bring me a cure, I'm going to give a great reward. And he said, and the cure was the milk of a lion. So this person comes and he goes through great peril to find, great peril to procure for the king the milk of a lion. And he goes in absolutely confident that, hey, I'm going to be getting a good reward. He's counting out the gelt before he has it in his hands. Boy, I'm going to be on easy street, man. And then when he gets him over to my king, I brought you what you need, the milk of a dog. And the king, wait, what? Are you making fun of me? The milk of a dog? It's the milk of a lion. And when the king heard him say the milk of a dog, he had him thrown in prison and he was going to be executed. And the tongue said, you see, you thought I wasn't so important. Now look at the mess you're in. Okay, but if you give me a chance, I'll get you out of it. And then he explained the tongues, explains to the king, I'm so sorry, but I was so overwhelmed by being in the presence of a king, of the great king, and I apologize, but it is indeed the milk of a lion. And of course, the king takes the potion of the elixir, and he's cured, and the story ends happily ever after. But the tongue proved its point that, hey, look, you thought I was the lowest, but we, like I said, everyone. It doesn't make any difference how society sees you or people around you see you. The most important thing is what you have to contribute, and everyone has a contribution to make. Even people that everyone else around them saying, well, what like in Pirkei Avot it says, call no one useless and nothing worthless. Everything has its time and place. So the idea is that it's very important to give respect, acknowledgement to every individual that God created on this earth. That you say they have something to contribute, something I can learn from.
Even the gnat, even the
Yitush. It mentioned that the Yitush came before Adam. And what's interesting about the Yitush, it's the one creature that doesn't even defecate. It doesn't even produce waste matter to the Yitush, it says, which is the gnat, does not produce, in the Gemara it says it doesn't produce waste material, which would go to fertilize the soil or what have you. They said the Yitush doesn't do that.
Useless.
It consumes. So you're saying, well, what does it have to purpose? The Yitush has a place. Hashem created it before Adam to indicate that even the Yitush has a place in my creation. You don't get to judge the Yitush.
I would say that while we all say, blessed are the peacemakers, we should say in the same breath, blessed are the garbage takers. If you've been in New York during the garbage strike, that city shut down in 1 week. Nobody picks up the garbage. 1 week, you have plague, you have rats. You have the complete and total destruction of society, meltdown of society, like Katrina. They're just it's just gonna fall all apart. So blessed are the garbage takers, man. Everybody has a place and everybody has their role.
Right. I mean, I have tremendous akara tov to somebody who shines my shoes. Wow, you did a great job. I could never get my shoes to shine. Everyone has to be respected and acknowledged for their contributions. And if we really would do that, the whole concept of V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha ani Hashem, love your neighbor as yourself, it starts with respect and acknowledging others. And so getting back to the Parsha, acknowledgement is given to all these separate groups individually, so that, hey, you know what, we're not just considering like just a mishmash, the totality, a whole, like some amorphous blob. Each component contributed what was necessary to achieve the desired result.
Mm-hmm. Well, I would say, let's take, for example, does everybody here know who Jonas Salk is? Okay, Jonas Salk.
Vaccine.
The vaccine, right? He invented the polio vaccine. Okay. Would you rather Jonas Salk be every day in the laboratory, or would you rather him be every day in the temple? If you only had one choice out of these two options, where do you want Jonas Salk to be?
In his lab.
I don't want him to be in temple. I want him to be at work. And that is his place, in the lab, right? And so maybe he didn't go to temple, and maybe he didn't keep Shabbat, but he certainly deserves a share in the world to come.
This is what we with everyone, we're supposed to be dan l'chaf zechut, to judge everyone meritoriously. And I get in trouble with my colleagues for this because I said, you know what? We have a chovah, an obligation to be dan l'chaf zechut. Now, with some of my colleagues, I sort of, I diverge from my traditional Orthodox training in rabbinical school because I'm saying to myself, look, a person who's putting in their hishtadlut, their effort and everything like that, to do what they have to do with God, the task that God assigned them to do. It's not my place. It's not my place to judge that person. Is that what they're, what task they're doing? What should I say? That a person who's putting in their amelis and their hishtadlut, their work, their effort, they're striving to do, to use their skills for tikkun olam, for elevating the world, for serving their fellow human beings, and what have you. Look, I'm a rabbi. Would I love to see every Jew being shomer mitzvot, keeping Shabbos, keeping kosher? I'm not going to lie. Of course, I'd love to see that. But the point is that I'm not going to judge someone who doesn't do these things because, they might have a greater chelik and olam haba that I could ever dream of, a greater share in the world to come than I could ever dream of, because what they're doing is they're practicing ahavat chinam, senseless love. They're fulfilling their purpose. They're fulfilling their task. And I tell my colleagues, I said, look, I'm not going to step into the shoes of Kadosh Baruch Hu and say who's doing their job and who's not. That's not my place.
That's a job for administrators.
Right. That's above my pay grade.
And we don't need those administrators usually. Yeah.
So, that's as simple as that. For people, like I said, I mean, there's examples in the Talmud and the Gemara where people who are idolaters, avodah zarah, get the greatest chalik, the greatest reward in the world to come for gemilat chasedim, for acts of kindness and acts of, and the Gemara is studded with examples of this. People who, are not Jewish, and beyond that, even worshiping idols, but they get a share in the world to come. I said, so my argument is, if people who don't even acknowledge God and who are practicing idolatry, if they can get a share in the world to come because they're doing, even if inadvertently, God's will, the Ratzon of Hashem, then I said, then I see in it a kol we would call a kol v'chomer, then even more so. I said, people who acknowledge there's a God, whether Jewish or not, and who are doing their job, might get a greater share in the world to come than I mean, really, what makes an Eved Hashem, a servant of Hashem? Jonas Salk was an Eved Hashem. I mean, I'm just hoping to get in with my strings and boxes, my tzitzit, I'm trying to lawyer my way in.
Well, you're following, you're doing your best to follow rules and be pious and observant and keep the commandments. And, those are the things that were set forth, that if you do these things, it's a commitment. All right. So, yeah. And I think you're right. The bottom line is be kind and give to charity. There you go. This is the two.
What gets to me, doctor, if you want to know what gets me Irish up, is when I see people who are shomer mitzvot, and they're like, they don't treat their fellow human beings with the proper degree of kavod, proper degree of respect, or they, they're keeping the window dressing, is what I call it. They're keeping the window dressing. It's interesting, when Rabbi Hillel, someone came to Rabbi Hillel and said they wanted to convert, they wanted to become Jewish. And they'd gone to Rabbi Shammai, and Rabbi Shammai, he was a tough one. He just like, I don't have time for this. Rabbi Hillel said, Rabbi Hillel, the person eventually became Jewish under Rabbi Hillel, and Rabbi Hillel said, that which is hurtful to yourself, don't do to others. The rest of the Torah is commentary. Oh, wow. I mean, I told this to the rabbi when I was in a Devar Torah, Drasha, that I was giving, a sermon that I was giving, the rabbi, a colleague of mine was ready to chew my head off. when I told him, I said, no, I said, I didn't say that a person, I'm not telling people not to keep mitzvot. I'm saying that the rest of the Torah is commentary. What gives you the right to say the rest of the Torah? I said, I'm just quoting Rabbi Hillel. Go argue with him.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, go argue with him. I'm just quoting Rabbi Hillel. Is that the rest of the Torah is commentary? The very right in Vayikra, the center of the Torah, living your neighbor as yourself, is right in the center of the Torah. I said, so that the Iker Zach is how you treat your other, the mitzvah beinam lachabera, the laws which govern the way we interact with our fellow human beings. I said, if I offend God, I can do tshuva. I can do repentance. But if we treat our fellow human beings in a negative way, it can spawn resentment. It can spawn sinat chinam. It can hurt someone's feelings.
It can hurt someone who you had nothing to do with it, completely
had nothing to do
inadvertently.
with. It goes right down to saying, I think it's in Pirkei Avot, is that anyone who actually causes someone to causes their face to whiten, like someone who, if you humiliate someone in public, you have no chelik olam haba.
Okay, so I want to comment on that. As everybody I think knows, last week we broadcast from Florida. And it's because we were visiting my mother, and she told me a story. My mother is not a religious Jew. She doesn't go to a temple anymore or anything like that. But she's a Holocaust survivor, and she's culturally Jewish, and she sent me to yeshiva, so Jewish identity is very important to her. But, she herself is probably not going to be a temple this Rosh Hashanah. Okay, so that's just starting off like that. She has a friend who is a Chabad rabbi who has 9 children. Okay. 9 children, and my mother was visiting them, and I got into a conversation apparently with the 7-year-old, and the 7-year-old said to her, do you know the Aleph Bet? And she said, I do know the Aleph Bet. And she proceeded to say the Aleph Bet incorrectly. On purpose. And which is kind of funny. The reaction though was amazing. There was this 7-year-old child there, right? And sorry, get a little comfortable. And he turned what my mother said, Aleph, base, Lamed, something, and she looked at the little boy and she said, is that right? She presented him with an opportunity to correct an adult, because the little boy knows. And what he said was, everybody else was around, what he said to her was, well, that's very good. That is excellent. That is very good. But I have a little difference that I can share with you. Wow. Like, he didn't jump in there with, no, you moron, it's all Bet Gimel Daled Hey Vav Zayin Chet Tet, like, he didn't do that. He was for a 7-year-old kid to have such a, what we would call a Yiddish cup, or a Jewish head, to have a smart, to approach is really amazing, impressive, and something that should be celebrated.
I'm trying to get a friend of mine who's a Chabad rabbi, a member of my kahila, like myself, came up religious, came up Jewish, and they had Pizza Station. It's a kosher restaurant that I go to, and that's Rabbi Herschel Gilbert McNabb, and he comes from a family of Orthodox Scots-Irish Jews. We all know each other. The O'Donovans, Rabbi McClooney, Sarah Fitzpatrick. We have a whole
A club.
a whole community of Orthodox Irish Jews in Los Angeles. But anyway, what he was saying is very close to what you were saying. And, we have a Yiddish cup. It's just usually filled with Guinness.
Okay. For those who didn't get that, his head is filled with Guinness. Very nice. What is may I ask, because I don't know, again, I am the ignorant Jew. Next week, do we traditionally do Parsha?
Yes, why not? Next week.
Okay. I want to make sure, right? Because there's a little jump in the schedule. That's all. Right? And also because Rosh Hashanah sometimes conflicts. Sometimes I think we don't necessarily read the Parsha on Rosh Hashanah.
Right.
So that's why I'm asking for clarification.
I'm quite certain next week we do.
Okay, good.
I'll double check it, but I'm quite sure we do.
Yeah. Well, all right.
Positive we do.
Okay, well then I believe you.
If your question is, it's a shallow, I still, but yeah.
I mean, this is almost this is my most. We're almost to the end, which to me is the most is to me the most interesting. I don't want to jump ahead, but to me the most interesting part of the whole show almost is the last 8 verses.
Next week is Ha'azinu. Is that how you say it? Ha'azinu?
Azinu? Yeah,
that's next week.
Yeah. Yes, Parsha. I think you're right. Yes, Hazinu. Yes, Parsha Hazinu. Yes. Well, so there you go. We'll do Hazinu, and then we've got the kicker ending is after that. So we'll keep it like that. All right. Any questions, comments, queries? Should we end early a little bit?
Oh, the Parsha. Well, no, I'm not going to go into Parsha Zazinu because we'll save that for the next meeting. You're saying
I think the following week, Yom Kippur, there's no separate portion unless it's one that you're reading for Yom Kippur. But there's no.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. There's no what?
There's no portion for Yom Kippur. There's no.
Okay.
There's no one for that week, so that one might have to be something else.
Okay. All right.
We go into. They'll be auctioning off Chosen Bereshis for Sukkot Simchat Torah. We start over again. Auction off Chosen Bereshis.
Yes.
That's a segula, actually. If someone's looking to have children or to be Makayim the mitzvah of Pri V'Ribia, to have children, it's a segula to have Chosen Bereshis. Just let you know.
Okay, wait. So I don't think not everybody understands what a segula is. So
a segula is like a charm, basically.
A charm, a ritual. It is
ritual, a charm.
A theurgic.
It's basically what
spell.
We call in Micah Hila divine magic.
It's a magic. It's a spell. Yeah.
There's no other word really translated. Everyone tries to get around that word. Segula is a treasure. I've heard it translated charm. I'm saying, never push it. What it is it's not witchcraft. It's not kesem. It's not kisha, but it's divinely sanctioned.
It's sanctioned magic.
Exactly. There's no other way around it.
That's correct. Sanctioned, and that's what I talk to people about all the time in the Bible. They say, "Oh, Bible not allowed, magic not allowed." No.
There's kosher and there's non-kosher, like anything else.
There's forbidden magic and there's acceptable magic.
Right.
This is an acceptable form of magic.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So So there you go. This is so you were saying this is tell us the segula again.
Chasen Bereshis, when we complete the Torah, and then we start from the beginning, Bereshis Barokim Hashemayim Ve'Haaretz.
Okay.
It's considered a segula. I don't know. I think maybe if someone's looking for their zivig, but also to procreate, to have children, you know.
So you're saying
to have Chasen Bereshis, to be called to an aliyah for Chasen Bereshis. So you have a lot of people that are looking to have kids. They do the bidding in shul, and they bid for Chasen Bereshis, and that's always
oh, I don't know that tradition really. Interesting.
Yeah. In Orthodox shuls, they do the bidding for the aliyahs.
They bid for the aliyah. Okay, so let's
aliyah.
Explain what an aliyah is to people.
When you're called up to the Torah, what the doctor is when he's doing that, the bracha, when we start, the idea is that's an aliyah. You're called up, you make that, that's the bracha rishona, that's the first bracha. And then when they finish reading your Torah part, when you finish that portion that you're called up for, then you do another bracha. So
the one that we say when we start here. Okay, so what happens is during the service, people are called up to read certain portions of the Torah, and that's making an aliyah. Is what? So I'm just defining that for everybody who someone asked in the chat here if we can talk about the ritual or segula, I guess, of kaparot. All right,
kaparot. That has absolutely no makor, no source. I've looked through everything. I mean, I've searched everywhere to see where kaparot. I mean, this is something. It's where you take a chicken and you swing it over your head. Right. And this is supposed
to everyone else, it's a ritual of sin transference.
Right.
And you have a chicken, okay, and the chicken is waved over a person's head to essentially purify them. And I believe the chicken is slaughtered at the end of it. But it is exactly parallels, Aaron transferring the sins of Israel into the goat, or you could transfer
Azazel, the thing with Azazel they had,
that's right.
Yeah.
You could transfer sin and impurity to something else, and many magical practices have that idea, right?
That was started actually. The only source I could find, I think that I don't know what to call it, minhag, custom, whatever. I think it was started by Rabbi Sanders. He became a colonel.
Colonel Sanders?
That's what I was going to say, Colonel Sanders. I heard that they slaughter the chickens afterwards and feed them to the poor. I mean, that kind of sounds funky. And isn't that what they do in Spain after the bullfights? They take the meat and give it to the poor.
I tell you one thing. I came up in a religious household, but I came up vegetarian. And the McNabbs, I alluded to Rabbi Herschel McNabb. He's also vegetarian. And they actually have online Jew, Irish, even vegan. A lot of Irish Jews are vegetarian.
They transferred into a tofu loaf.
It comes into a situation. I always had a question: does this run afoul of Tzar Balei Chaim, causing suffering to a living animal, which is an Isser Midiraita? And I always had that question. And they say, "Oh no, it's done humanely." And I've never figured out how you can whip a chicken around your head humanely. I mean, but I have questions on it because mainly not the act itself, but the way some of these chickens are kept prior to the parot is really in these cramped cages where I don't know. I have an issue.
I don't. Someone commented about
Chabad does it as humanely as any group I've found, but many other groups that I've seen, the chickens are not. They
grab them by the legs and throw them around.
There is an inyan of Tzar Balei Chaim, even the way they're kept and caged and just right next to each other, and they're not, you know, in the hot weather or in the rain, whatever, or the cold. And I mean, I always had a question. I says, well, you know, it says a mitzvah haba'a ba'avera is puzzle. A mitzvah achieved through transgression is not a mitzvah. If I steal a pair of tefillin to make the mitzvah laniach tefillin, it's not a mitzvah, right? A mitzvah haba'a ba'avera is considered puzzle. That's the halacha.
So I can't steal someone else's mezuzah and put it on my door.
Exactly.
Right. Okay.
Exactly.
Well, someone mentioned about feeding the chicken to the poor. I haven't come across that aspect, but I have come across an aspect of sin eating for the poor, which is very traditional and is from what I have my experience in American history is through evangelical Christianity still having I don't know if it's evangelical Christianity or Pentecost, but you know, one of the sects of Christianity who with the snakes and Pentecost, I think Pentecostal, yeah, Pentecostal, right? That there was a tradition of people who were sin eaters, and the sins were transferred. They were generally poor people. The sins were transferred into the food, and then a meal was provided for the poor, which, you know, seems, of course, a little bit exploitative, I will say. So I did such a ceremony for other people at one of the Hoodoo Heritage Festivals, where people transferred their sins into stones, and I ate all the stones on their behalf, and they had it was a rocky road, let's say.
You just give me an idea for a new parnasa, a new income stream. You know, I'll eat anybody's avera for $99.95. I mean,
well, that's been done. There is an industry for that. Absolutely. I'll take the blame.
Okay.
I'll be your patsy.
Okay.
You know, that's what they're saying, right? That's what they're saying. I'll take the blame. You do it. I'll take you do the crime. I'll serve the time. Why? Because I'm going to get 3 squares a day and a cot to sleep in. You know?
I mean, I don't really ascribe to the notion that someone can, you know, and traditional Jewish belief is that we're each responsible for our own actions.
Absolutely.
And, you know, that's the idea, like, you know, no one else can suffer vicariously and be
only you can atone for your sin.
Exactly, atone for my sins. I'm squarely responsible for them. And of course, like I point out, I said, you know, I said, we're with people who would ask me, I said, you know, it's not. I said that the very concept of atonement in Judaism, kapar avona, atonement for sin, is that in traditional Jewish thought, we don't believe that the suffering of anyone or even a great tzaddik, even the most righteous person, their suffering cannot atone for my sin. I can't eat their sins, and I can't atone for their sins. We're each responsible for our own, you know, for atoning, or we're each have to have accountability for our own actions.
And that is also part of this parsha. Is in this parsha, sewn into this parsha are lessons about free will.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was one of the things that Hakol tzuvui for shus natuna. Everything is foreseen, but free will is given. And there's a whole thing about that. Well, wait a minute. If everything is foreseen, how is free will given? And the way I've always explained it is that it's kind of like a quantum field. A quantum field, I mean, getting into quantum physics, is that a quantum field is only, in other words, it only exists as a range of possibilities. And that field collapses when we move into the present. Then other possibilities blink out of existence, and we're left with the choice we made. So I'm saying that if we could perceive things from the perspective of an omniscient, omnipotent deity, then we would see every possible outcome of every action we ever take. But so that's how everything is foreseen. But free will is given is that we're partners. We become partners with God in creating our reality.
Your explanation is wonderful and clear, and I have always been more brutish and about it. My explanation has been, it's a paradox. Deal with it.
It is a paradox.
That this is what Judaism
All
is.
I offered was a poor attempt to explain the paradox.
Yeah, right. No, you. That's what I'm saying. Like, you actually explained it, and you took the time and energy to try to explain it. And my explanation is, it's a paradox. Learn to deal with paradoxes. That's what Judaism is all about.
Yeah.
That's
Go see Pirates of
all about.
Penzance, a paradox of paradox.
You have to strengthen your svara, your ability to tolerate things that are seemingly disparate to you. Why are they disparate to you? Because maybe you're looking from this perspective or this perspective. It might look entirely different from that perspective.
That's exactly right. I mean, just to be honest, and here again, I'm going to reveal myself to be an epicurus, a heretic of the worst degree. Because I'm saying that every belief in God is a paradox. Because I believe in Hashem, I believe in the Rabbanu Shalom, I believe in God, but paradoxically, I'm believing in that which is trans-infinite, which has no boundaries, believable, no boundaries, Ein Sof, without end, and has no creator. So you're saying because God preceded creation and nothing created God. So I can say, how can you have something that exists without a creator? How can you have something that exists without a creator? It gets back to the paradox of what came first, the chicken or the egg. And I'm saying, what
not
came?
something.
So yeah,
Because Hashem isn't something. It's nothing. The endless is nothing. It's like everything's like something out of nothing. Because
Yesh
otherwise it would be
Mayan.
something.
It says we call it Yesh Mayan, as something from nothing. How do you create something for nothing? It's in direct violation of one of the basic principles of thermodynamics, that energy cannot be created or destroyed. How do you get around that? So like I said, just believing in God requires the ability to, as the doctor alluded to, deal with paradoxes.
You got it.
It comes down to either saying, hey, you know what, I'm gonna accept this paradox and embrace it, or say the litmus test for me of who's a tzaddik, and there again, I hope only this group sees what I'm about to say, because I'm saying the litmus test is not how strongly you believe in God, but how strongly you live your life as if there is a God.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. I get that. Right.
Live your life.
But you can call me Baal Epicurus Tov.
Right.
Instead of Baal Shem Tov, I'll be Baal Epicurus Tov.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, of course, Faith.
Um,
Ask away.
I was just wondering, aren't we trying to explain something that's unexplainable? I mean, we don't understand how things could be created out of something
That's right.
like
That's
God,
right.
but
That's
God
right.
is Hashem. Hashem created everything. We shouldn't be able to understand how it did that.
Absolutely correct. Yeah, I would say you're
That's just the way
if you're a
I think.
fish, the idea
Yeah.
of a bird is ridiculous. It's
Yeah.
outside your world, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. You don't know that
An
there's something
interesting
above.
thing.
You don't know there's something above that, above the layer of water. That is the top layer of water if you're a fish, right?
But we do, but I kind of trust that it knows what it did. I don't have to explain it.
Right.
For me, I don't
Listen,
have
in the
to.
Gemara, very interesting story. One time, a rabbi was walking with his students, and they came across it, and one of his students asked, "Rabbi, if everything has a purpose, what's the purpose of epicorsis, or what we call kafira, like being kofar, to denying God's existence?" And the rabbi said, if a poor person comes to ask you for food or at that moment, you're supposed to think that God's not there to help. It's my job. It's my and this is brought down. Again, it's brought down in the Gemara. It's a midrash, and it has Hashem saying, better that people would forsake me but follow my laws, for by following my laws they return to me. So actually, Judaism has always focused more on deed than creed, more
Yeah.
on doing than believe than I believe. That's great. Hallelujah, you believe. But how does that translate into how you live your life and how you interact with your fellow human beings?
Yeah, there's one question here. I think we'll take this as maybe as the final question, and then we'll call it a day because we're coming up on the top of the or the bottom of the hour or top of the hour. I don't know. Is why aren't we supposed to pronounce the ineffable name? Is that because we're not? Is it something that we can't understand? Well, that might be part of the reason. Yeah, one of the reasons is because in Judaism, the idea we've been talking about sound, and sound is very powerful. Sound, the letters of the Hebrew language, according to Sefer Yetzirah, are the foundational building blocks from which you can create. So the idea is, God created through an act of sound. And this is why the tongue is the most important. And this is why we talk about, oh my goodness, they're all upset because they're going to erase their father's name from history. And this is why the curse, Yamach Shemo Vizikro, may his name and memory be erased. The power is in the name, and we don't want to be disrespectful, blasphemous by saying the name. And it is a concept. Yeah, I think that's probably as best as I can do in that time period. Do you have anything to add?
Basically, the Yud K Vav K and the Tetragrammaton, which is the 72 letter name of God. But there are names of God. For example, someone told me, Rabbi McLashley, you teach on, you talk about things, and when I'm talking to some of my colleagues and my students, you teach on mysticism and this and we can't use the names of God. And I said, really? Then stop saying the Ana B'Koach prayer, because it's the Membet. It's the 32-letter name of God. Yeah. Rabbi McLashley, what are you doing? You can't be invoking malachim, angels. So really, then stop saying the Kriyat Shema Lamita, because we're invoking God, Michael, Gabriel, Oriel, and Raphael. I mean, it's there.
Stop saying the Song of Songs.
Right.
Right. It's all over the place. Yeah.
It's all over the place. So when people say they get freaked out by, invoking angels or using the names of God, I'm saying it's in the siddur, my friends. Stop davening if you don't want to do it.
Yeah. I think there are so many names, and we do say many of them. There's just one that we generally avoid, but people say Hashem. we know what we're talking about.
It
or
literally means the name.
the
Hashem.
name. It means the name.
That's right. We say
Hashem.
HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Holy One, blessed be He, Rabbanu Shalom, the Master of the Universe. You know, all different kind of names. Done.
Yeah, El Shaddai. We've got, you know, I mean, is there any? I don't believe there's a prohibition against saying Shaddai.
No, well, there is actually, but I mean, people say it, but I mean, we have the shin on the mezuzah, the shin daled yud.
Right,
so.
but is there? I don't know. Are there I don't. I mean, this is that's a good question.
Most people would say not to say it. I don't know, but I mean, the thing is, I just usually, I mean, I just go with Hashem, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Rabbanu Shalom, or hey, big guy. I mean, you know, that's me.
Yeah.
Play it
Well,
safe.
I think that's a wonderful place to park it, since we're a little bit over, and we'll call it a wonderful evening. What do you think, guys?
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, all right, and thank you, Rabbi. I appreciate it as always. It's a blessing to have you here, and thank you
all.
everyone for coming. It's becoming very popular. I really love it. So you guys are rocking it. But I want you talking more and asking questions, and you have an assignment. Everybody who's here still has an assignment, which is to find out why I didn't name the other people. So that's it.
Maybe